Feminism. Women get treated no differently than animals. There you go. You want your feminist message? 11 out of 10 game.
Alright, I guess I'm finally talking about him today. Our good buddy Synthetic Man. Oh boy. So not too long ago, the latest game in the Silent Hill series, Silent Hill F, was just released on all major platforms by Konami. Silent Hill is a very popular psychological horror game series that has managed to remain relevant ever since the first game came out in 1999. While a lot of the earliest survival horror games relied a lot on narrow corridors that were hard to see around and jump scares in order to scare their players, Silent Hill really set itself apart by focusing far more on psychological horror and intentionally playing with the player's mind. This is also reflected in pretty much every protagonist of every mainline Silent Hill game, since oftentimes they are traumatized individuals that must overcome their trauma while fighting off hordes of horrifying monsters. It's probably the best psychological horror game series out there, and honestly just some of the best psychological horror media out there overall. Technically, there hasn't been a new mainline Silent Hill game since 2004, so a lot of people were very skeptical for this new upcoming game, which is actually not set in the town of Silent Hill, which is where most games take place. Instead, this game is actually set in 1960s Japan, although most of the same psychological horror themes are still intact within this game. Following Silent Hill F's release, the reception was actually pretty positive overall. The game currently sits at an 86 on Metacritic, and most news outlets have been positively receptive to this game overall. But unfortunately, one very notorious game reviewer put out a video that I found genuinely hilarious on this game. Enter Synthetic Man, perhaps one of the most notorious gaming YouTubers out there. Synthetic Man is a very interesting commodity, to say the least. He's actually been doing gaming related videos on YouTube for about 5 years now, with the earliest video available on his channel being about the RE3 remake. And not long after this, he followed this up with a review of The Last of Us Part 2. Even right from the get-go, it was very easy to see his stance on gaming and really just the world around him overall being put into each and every review of his. The majority of his gaming reviews end up just being him ranting for hours on end about how he hates women and people of color in his video game, and just in general. I think if you tallied up the amount of minutes that he spends talking about wokeness or women or people of color or different conspiracy theories like BlackRock, as opposed to actually talking about the game, you'd have a pretty unfair scale. One subject very clearly outweighs the other here.
The rest of the trailers shown ranged from mediocre slop to actual leftist propaganda. Like I said, it wouldn't even be worth it to have a woke counter. All you have to do is count the amount of brown female protagonists on screen, and trust me, it only gets worse from here.
It is also funny because if you look at this guy's earliest videos, most of it was just him talking about games he was nostalgic for, like Spyro or Darksiders or Crash Bandicoot or Jak and Daxter. But he very quickly saw where the grift could get him and just leaned fully into that. Most of his gaming reviews just boiled down to him complaining about quote-unquote wokeness plaguing the gaming industry. He's done this with games like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, and even the new Indiana Jones game. I find that last one especially funny though, because he actually has the villain from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as one of the synth cells that he sympathizes with at the top of his channel banner. Wow, really showing your hand there, buddy.
I think of one Austrian who tried to save the world in all of history. Never mind. Anyway.
That's what a Nazi would say.
Like most sane people, I was made aware of Synthetic Man a few years back when his Tears of the Kingdom review was floating around and getting clowned on a lot, and rightfully so. As someone whose favorite gaming series is The Legend of Zelda, I saw this review, laughed at it, and then kind of forgot about it afterward. But just recently, I was made aware of another review by this guy about a game I've actually talked about in recent memory, that being Silent Hill F. And lo and behold, Synthetic Man considers Silent Hill F to be disgusting woke propaganda. I already found his Tears of the Kingdom review to be genuinely insane in a very laughable way when he thought that Link was in a gay relationship for some reason.
There's all sorts of little nuggets of wokeness, quote-unquote subtle homosexual imagery from Breath of the Wild has been expanded even further in this one, and I already know people are gonna say I'm reading into it and no kid's gonna see this shit, but that's exactly how you desensitize people and how you groom them, right? You expose them to things.
But honestly, I think this Silent Hill F one is even more insane than that in a lot of ways. There's so many mind-melting reads that he gets on this game that seem to come completely out of nowhere when he tries to claim this is quote-unquote woke propaganda. And honestly, after seeing his entire video, I'm questioning whether Synthetic Man has actually played a Silent Hill game before or not. I genuinely don't think this man has actually ever played a single one of these games. I'm not even sure if he understands what psychological horror is as a genre. This video was certainly an experience to say the least, and a lot of you have recommended that I check out Synthetic Man for a Hunting Griftly Bears video before, so I guess I'm finally doing that now. So without further ado, let's dive into Synthetic Man's video on Silent Hill F.
I can't remember the last time that I've been genuinely disgusted with a video game.
Oh, really? Well, I think the last 5 years of your content output would actually speak very differently to that, Synthetic Man. It kind of seems like your entire shtick is talking about video games and trying to call them woke propaganda. The last time you actually made a proper video game review, funny enough, was about 2 years ago when you reviewed all the greatest Sonic games. Since then, you've pretty much just doubled down on the anti-woke grift and have just been calling every single video game you come across quote-unquote woke propaganda. And if by some miracle you actually do like a video game, it's usually because you don't consider it quote-unquote woke, and that's kind of your only criteria for that. That's exactly why you said Stellar Blade was a step in the right direction for the gaming industry.
Now, of course, that's still an upgrade over an insufferable feminist self-insert.
You've admitted before even that this kind of content is what got you to over 100,000 subscribers, even though in your own words you'd rather still be making videos about Spyro and games you grew up with.
I just in my Spyro video, which you guys didn't watch, some of you, I know some of you watched it, those of you who commented, love you guys, but everyone else, you didn't care because as I've said before, you don't want to hear game recommendations, you just want to hear someone shit on something or somebody hypes something up coming out new. You don't want to like actually hear about some game you never played that is actually good and you probably actually have fun with instead of stupid bull.
You don't even like doing this kind of content, you're just doing it because it nets you an instant audience. The grift is absolutely real here.
And that is not an exaggeration. This is not one of those cases where I just tell you, oh, another modern game sucks. But yes, this game does suck, but that's besides the point. That's just a dime a dozen in this era. No, Silent Hill F genuinely disgusted me. This game is some of the most overt anti-natalism, anti-marriage propaganda that I've seen in years.
Okay, even right off the bat here, I feel like Synth already shows that he doesn't really understand what this game is about, or maybe he just doesn't want to understand. As stated before, Silent Hill F is a game that takes place in the 1960s in Japan and focuses on a young girl named Hanako. Historically, during the 1960s in Japan, arranged marriages actually were starting to go out of fashion, and love marriages, as they're called, began to become much more common. This was a period that resulted in a lot of big cultural divide for the country of Japan overall, since those who were for arranged marriages wanted them to not go out of style, since arranged marriages were often a status symbol for a family, and that pitted them against the younger generation who was tired of seeing arranged marriages be a thing at all and wanted to just simply marry someone because they loved them. This game is a period piece and directly tapping into that. By no means is this an anti-marriage game. If anything, this game is trying to promote healthy marriage and healthy relationships. That's kind of the entire message here, but it seems like Synth completely missed that. I sort of get the feeling Synth wouldn't even know what a period piece is if you asked him.
I think it's pretty clear that the F in the title stands for feminism. And let's forget the fact that this clearly is not a good Silent Hill game. It's not a good game, period. The combat is like bad Dark Souls. And for some reason, there's a devil trigger from Devil May Cry in this as well. It is some of the most clunky, jank combat, and not in the way that, oh, classic survival horror games had bad combat, so it's okay for this to have bad combat too. First of all, that's a lie. There's nothing wrong with classic survival horror gameplay, no matter how much revisionist history shill YouTubers tell you. There is nothing wrong with the classic Resident Evil or Silent Hill games. You can play them right now and have a good time.
Not really. That's a pretty subjective take there. I'm not sure why you're trying to present that as an objective fact. The original Silent Hill and original Resident Evil games all used tank controls, something that was gradually phased out of both series over time as gaming became one of the biggest entertainment industries in the world and eventually did become the biggest one. As a result of both Resident Evil and Silent Hill appealing to more and more people as gaming in general began to appeal to more and more people, companies like Capcom began to tweak the gameplay of things like Resident Evil and actually change the gameplay style entirely for the the remake on GameCube. The remake of the first Resident Evil game actually swapped out tank controls entirely for a much more accessible gameplay style that appealed to a lot more people and thus got more people invested in the series. Konami noticed how well this worked for Capcom and as a result decided to do the same thing for their horror series Silent Hill. And as a result, Silent Hill ended up being picked up by an even bigger audience than it had before. Funny enough, Silent Hill 2, which is actually the first one to offer the option for both tank controls and also the new kind of control mode that was more accessible, ended up becoming the most critically acclaimed game in this series. And a big part of that is because more new people could get into it and get into this series overall. So even though tank controls are where the game started, and I think that should be recognized, trying to present it as the only way to play these games is kind of elitist and also just not really true at all. But given the fact this comes from the same guy that sympathizes with a certain mustache man, I guess I can't say I'm surprised. I think I'm starting to understand why he seems opposed to period pieces now. He'd probably feel called out by Inglourious Bastards or Schindler's List or The Sound of Music.
Where it's literally just like, you know, what, you think I'm a diversity hire? Just literally, like, every time the bitch says something, I'm like, yes, you are a diversity hire. You're not qualified for this. You know, like, it basically just rattle off everything. You had lower college scores than everyone else. You're an affirmative action hire, blah, 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 blah. You know, fuck you. Kill. I'm losing it.
I hate these guys.
This combat system was genuinely infuriating. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, so it's more left-wing propaganda.
Ah, yes, because clearly a game talking about the dangers of being roped into a toxic relationship and marriage, and also diving into the dangers of being in an abusive relationship, and also the issues with arranged marriage overall, is clearly left-wing propaganda. So according to him, apparently a girl not wanting to be in an abusive relationship is left-wing propaganda. Right. I kinda can't believe this guy is already showing his hands so early in this video even. It's kind of incredible. It's like the incel speedrun.
This game is an absolute joke, dude. I cannot believe there's a prominent YouTuber, and I'm not going to say who it is, but you already know. Let's just say it involves increasing your skill upward in some way. Is saying this game is like a masterpiece and the future of Silent Hill. No, this is a horrific joke of a video game.
So obviously here, Synth is referring to the YouTuber's skill up in his own review of Silent Hill F. However, I find it funny that Synth seems to try to imply that SkillUp's review is incredibly shallow, when really, if you compare Synth's review with SkillUp's review, it's actually kind of night and day. Whereas Synthetic's review is mostly just him trying to hammer the same talking points over and over about him thinking this game is feminist propaganda, amongst other things we'll get into later, SkillUp actually takes the time to really dive into each theme this game has to offer and what Hanako's relationship is with the people around her and what it's supposed to mean and what the symbolism in the game could possibly be alluding to as well. SkillUp's review is also a lot shorter, only being 23 minutes, but even in that shorter amount of time, he's already able to offer so much more critical insight than Synth probably ever could. Unlike Synthetic Man, SkillUp understands that this game is a period piece and it's tapping into what the life of a teenage girl in Japan would have looked like in the 1960s. Especially with that cultural divide beginning between arranged marriages and love marriages. I'm beginning to get the feeling that Synth might be a little jealous here that he can't offer the same kind of critical insight without his audience probably flocking away.
And let's forget the fact that this clearly is not a good Silent Hill game. It's not a good game, period. The combat is like bad Dark Souls.
So this is another thing that makes me feel like he actually hasn't played a Silent Hill game before, because if Synthetic Man had, he would probably know the combat is always incredibly weak and clunky in those games. But in a lot of ways, that's by design, and it makes the experience all the more terrifying in directly getting into the player's head. Silent Hill games have always done this, so it's not really a surprise that F does the same thing. I genuinely question whether this guy even knows what the point of all Silent Hill games are to begin with.
Imagine comparing marriage to chopping off your arm and slicing your face off.
No, they're not comparing marriage to chopping your arm off and slicing your face off. The point of that scene you're talking about is referring to abusive relationships and feeling pressure to stay in one by the people around you. That's why in that scene, Hanako loses her face and also loses her arm because it's supposed to represent her losing her freedom by being in this toxic relationship. Like, I feel like even the most mundane of critics should be able to read into something like that, but somehow Synth completely misses it. Or probably the more likely answer is that Synth doesn't really want to acknowledge what this game is actually about and just wants to try to claim it's about anti-marriage when that's really not the case here at all. This game's message is anti-abuse and anti-toxic relationships. It is not anti-marriage.
Oh, and your husband, he can just mind control you with his voice, by the way. I don't care if Japan in the 60s, women had no rights.
Wow, well there's a big surprise. Someone who has built his entire platform off of insane incels who somehow see a fraction of themselves within you doesn't care about the rights of women. Wow, what a complete shock. Reveal of the century right there. I also find this funny because Synth's audience very clearly doesn't even care about him as a person at all. There's so many moments on his live streams where he gets drunk and his chat intentionally tries to pressure him to say something he's not even comfortable with talking about, which is pretty funny in its own right because clearly there's already a lot of stuff he's very comfortable saying.
Just talk about women of your past. I'm not talking about women. Talking about women is a dangerous game because I've made comments. I haven't said horrible things, but I've said some things. I've revealed my power level a couple times. That being said, there are some based women. It's pretty rare. It's pretty fucking rare, but there are some.
But his chat doesn't really care about him or his mental health in moments like that and just tries to get him to say stuff they think is edgy or funny. Like, man, I can't imagine having an audience like that. If Synth didn't make these videos and deliberately did them the way he does, I don't think he'd have an audience at all. His audience is entirely built off of these kind of people, and it's kind of insane. Also just genuinely sad.
This game was released under the current political climate. They knew that this is left-wing propaganda.
Oh, right, because clearly a Japanese company is totally on the pulse of American politics and they wanted to make this woke propaganda. What? I'm honestly still trying to wrap my head around the thought process with Synth's statement there. Does he not understand that Konami is a Japanese company? And this game is also set directly in 1960s Japan. In what way were they trying to market towards American politics? It kind of just seems like they wanted to make a Japanese horror game set in Japan, and that's exactly what they did. They even got the writer for Higurashi When They Cry to do the story for this game, since of course that's a very popular Japanese visual novel series. I really fail to see how this game is directly meant to appeal to American politics whatsoever.
This is complete embarrassing slop. I don't care if he worked as a social worker once upon a time and witnessed a lot of abusive fathers who beat their wives and their children. This story is encouraging Japanese people not to get married or to have kids, when their country's birth rate is already in the toilet and has begun importing dangerous immigrants just like all the first world countries in the West.
Wait, what? How'd you come to that conclusion? Somehow Synth completely still keeps missing the point here at every turn. It's kind of amazing. I know I keep saying it, but this game is anti-abuse, not anti-marriage. Even when you just start up the game for the first time, there's actually a content warning that says this game is set in Japan in the 1960s and contains depictions based on customs and the culture of that time. These depictions do not reflect the opinions or values of the developers or any individuals involved. This game is a period piece in every sense of the word, and that's something that a lot of the dialogue between the characters in this game also really revels in. This game is not anti-marriage, it is a deconstruction of arranged marriages in the 1960s in Japan, and also a very graphic deconstruction of the dangers of abusive relationships.
And why don't we take a moment and ask Western women how happy they are with their financial independence and sleeping around with hundreds of men in their 20s as they find themselves. Oh wait, they're the most miserable they have been in recent history.
Okay, I find it incredibly funny that he tries to claim that women are unhappier now than they ever have been before by showing this article. He claims this article shows that women are unhappier now than they ever have been in recent memory, but if you look at the date the article was published, it was published back in 2009, literally 16 years ago. This guy is so desperate to sell you on his false idea of Silent Hill F being anti-marriage propaganda that he's even willing to pull up an article from 16 years ago and somehow try to act like it's current. On top of this, if you actually look and read the article that he's showing here, it actually goes in direct opposition to what he's trying to say. This article from 2009 2009, mind you, says that women are unhappy regardless whether they're married, single, or divorced, what job they hold, or how much money they make, or how many kids they have. Let me emphasize that. The article states that regardless of whether women are married or not, around 2009, their happiness had dropped. So it kind of seems like this article is in direct conflict with what Synth is trying to say. I don't even think he read this article before just plastering it on the screen. I kind of can't believe it. I think he just expects that people won't fact check him on this stuff. Which, to be fair, knowing the majority of his audience, they probably wouldn't bother to do that. But thankfully, I'm here to do that and show why this guy is a major grifter. He didn't even try to hide it. I feel like Synth is making my job way too easy here.
Actually, the term Silent Hill is never used in this game at any point. This is clearly originally not a Silent Hill game. Some people suspect it was a Fatal Frame game originally.
Because the game isn't set in Silent Hill, it's set in a fictional town in 1960s Japan. It's still in the Silent Hill series, and that's why a lot of the same psychological themes are present here, but it doesn't take place in the town as Silent Hill. I feel like this should be so obvious, but he keeps missing it.
Where instead of it having this weird Dark Souls jank combat, it involved you taking photographs and then doing weird counterattacks on enemies. That's a possibility.
What? What do you mean some people? You mean you? I think most logical people would realize that Fatal Frame and Silent Hill are made by two entirely different developers. The Fatal Frame series, which is a Japanese horror game series, is made by Koei Tecmo. The Silent Hill series has always been made by Konami. Why in the world would Konami be developing a Fatal Frame game when Koei Tecmo owns the IP and makes it? It's honestly moments like these that really make it look like Synthetic Man honestly isn't an actual gamer at all. Or at the very least, he's vastly uninformed on a lot of the games he tries to act like he's an authority on.
Okay, as usual, I'm going to talk about the gameplay first because this is a video game. I know occasionally we get tourists here who are like, why would he talk about gameplay first instead of explaining what the game is and what the story synopsis is? I don't know, it's a video game and you're supposed to play those. It's an interactive medium.
Wait, what? How are you calling other people gaming tourists? You're the guy who's openly admitted he hasn't played hundreds of games out there, including some of the most beloved and classic games of all time. Here, just look at Synthetic Man saying this himself.
There are a lot of games that I haven't played that I probably should. Have you played American McGee's Alice before? No. I would like to play more of them since I only finished 10. I haven't played the Devil May Cry's either, Shunda. I played Turok 1's re-release on Steam for a while. I kind of got bored. I might just skip it too. Have you played any of the Shantae games? No, trailer, but I never played Jet Set Radio. Play Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005. No, I don't really play those games, but like RTS games, I don't play those, but I could try it. I didn't play Hitman 2 or 3 of the new ones, and I never played the original Super Mario RPG, so yeah, I kind of want to play the Xenosaga games, even if they end up not being that good, that'd be okay. I never played Control. I know some people recommended it to me. Admittedly, I still haven't played Morrowind to this day. Morbid friend, thanks for the €5. Why'd you stop at the 2B playthrough in Nier Automata? The third playthrough, which is completely different, amplifies the game exponentially. Yeah, well, I would have to play through a second shitty playthrough. Yeah, I know. Bully, I know. People tell me to play Bully all the time. I will before GTA 6 comes out, that's for sure. I'll also play GTA 4.
Somehow, the only Final Fantasy game this guy has played is 10, and he hasn't even played Super Mario RPG, along with all the other games listed here. This guy hasn't even played Bully or Jet Set Radio. He's really not in a position whatsoever to be calling other people gaming tourists.
In Silent Hill F's case, this is one of the worst combat systems I have ever experienced in any video game. I'm not exaggerating, I swear to you, this is one of the worst combat systems of all time, and I'm gonna try my best to explain why it was so painful. But first, before I say anything, I need to tell you, I played this game on hard. And this time, I actually have a good reason, because I promised myself I wasn't going to play a game on hard unless it's notoriously easy. The reason I picked hard for this game is because there's actually only 2 difficulty settings at the start. There's story, yes, they call it story, and hard. Now, I don't know about you, but every single modern video game I've ever played, story meant game journalist difficulty. That's what it means. So I have this dilemma where I have to choose between baby easy and hard is often unbalanced and basically untested. And there's several parts of this game that give me the impression they did not test hard difficulty very thoroughly. Now again, before any tourists decide to use this information against me, just saying, oh, well, you played on hard. Of course it's hard.
Yeah, because those quote-unquote tourists would be right. You could have just picked the story difficulty if you really wanted to. You keep complaining about the gameplay anyway, so it sounds like you should have just gone to the other difficulty regardless. This was your own doing, pal. I always find it funny that he complains about the quote-unquote woke mob or leftist or whatever always complaining and moaning when it seems like he does that far more than anyone else.
Okay, this is what happens when you live in a far left echo chamber and have 4 years. Everything you see is propaganda, but they're essentially just people who bitch and complain about anything that isn't leftist propaganda all day, and that's their entire life. They don't consume product because they're all fucking broke. They live with their parents, they're unemployed, and all they do is surround themselves with people who think exactly like them all day.
The hypocrisy is absolutely real.
Am I supposed to feel sympathetic for Hinako? She's just as much of a fucking bitch as any of the other women in this game. As for the story, I'm not going to go too in-depth here because I pretty much covered all the major points in the intro. Basically, this game is split into 2 parts. You have the town parts and you have the dream sequences. The town parts are Hinako reminiscing about her teenage years, while the dream sequences are an allegory for women losing their identity when they get married.
What? No! Again, Synthetic Man somehow either intentionally or unintentionally completely misses the point of what that first ending is supposed to represent. This game is once again not anti-marriage, it's anti-abuse and anti-arranged marriage. And funny enough, one of the multiple endings of this game really speaks to that in particular. This game has various endings depending on how many times you do a repeat playthrough of it. The first ending, which is the only one you can get on the first playthrough, is the one that he mentions here where it's revealed that Hanato supposedly killed all these people at her wedding. And it's also revealed that all the red and white pills that you were consuming throughout this game were actually drugs that drove you to do this. But one of the other endings you can get after getting this initial bad ending is actually what most people have been considering the true good ending. In this ending, Hanako finds out that the person who was supposed to be her husband in this arranged marriage was actually being controlled by their father, who in this scenario is actually represented by a giant fox demon. She ends up defeating this giant fox demon, which in turn breaks the spell it had over Katayuki, the person who was in this arranged marriage, as her husband. Now that both Hanako and Katayuki have their own sense of agency and freedom to choose whether they want to spend time together or not, they come to the conclusion that they should both try to get to know the real versions of each other, not the kind that was influenced by a higher power. And as a result, they decide to keep in touch so they can decide if they're really compatible for one another and if they really love each other. Like I said before, real love marriages were overtaking arranged marriages in Japan around this time, so this is actually meant to directly reflect that and be an allegory for that. Now that they aren't being pressured by some outside force to be married together for social status, these two can actually decide if they really love each other or not. And if Synthetic Man had actually played all the endings of this game and gotten the full story, which he admits he didn't here, he probably would have understood this. But he straight up didn't even try.
Although I got a lot of my rage out during the intro about the overall feminist message of this game, I think it bears repeating again how ridiculous it is in this day and age that we're getting yet another game pushing for anti-natalism and anti-marriage messaging when women are more unhappy now than they have been in any other point in the past 100 years.
Yet again, he cites that article from 2009 that didn't even reinforce his point at all. And now he's also trying to claim this game is anti-natalism? Where did he even get that from? Nowhere in this game does it say it's bad to have kids. I'm genuinely just baffled at all the things he tries to pull out of this game. There absolutely are a lot of takeaways you can get from the messages of Silent Hill F, but it feels like he's just missing every single one. I think he's plenty aware that this game actually isn't the things that he claims it is, or maybe he's just that stupid, I don't know. But it really feels like he's pulling things out of thin air and then coming away with a completely out of left field conclusion. Like somehow thinking this game is anti-marriage and anti-natalism. Like, come on, man, the rent cannot be this high. Oh, wait a minute, you don't pay rent. You still live with your parents, which on its own isn't a bad thing, but you've admitted before that they only keep you there because they know if they kicked you out, you wouldn't be able to make it. Also, you constantly take shots at your parents despite the fact they're the one putting a roof over your head.
No, I just don't have nearly the bills most people do, because I'm one of those people who lives with their parents. Well, I live with my mother, not my dad, but you know. The young girls having daddy issues. It's like, yeah, everyone's a shitty parent now, so everyone's fucked up. It's like, maybe you shouldn't let the internet raise your kids. Just a crazy thought. As someone who has as someone whose mind has been fucked, possibly without any hope of being normal, maybe you should, you know, talk to your kids about healthy sexuality and tell them the dangers of pornography or something. You know, just a thought.
I genuinely can't believe this guy. For those unaware, he was also taken to therapy by his parents because they wanted him to do better and not just be moping around all the time. But inevitably, he also just shrugged that off too. Like, I kinda just can't believe this guy's attitude half the time. Some people would kill to have parents that actually cared about them and actually wanted them to do better and get them therapy. And yet here Synth is just shrugging it off and taking it all for granted. Absolutely insane.
Yes, even under the horrifying nuclear family, marriage is like slavery. It's like giving up your identity. You have to do everything your husband says.
What? No? That scene you're showing is talking about arranged marriages once again. The way arranged marriages often work, there really wasn't any freedom at all. It often came off more as a way for two families to barter with each other rather than any sort of love being there whatsoever. A lot of the times in history, it was often ruling families setting up arranged marriages with each other, usually for social status or being able to keep an alliance or peace with each other. There was no love involved in it whatsoever. Yet again, Synth seems to completely miss this. It's absolutely wild how often the themes of this game just go completely over his head.
No, it's much better to be a career woman and work until you're 40, have no fucking kids, your egg carton's empty, you got 5 cats and are constantly stinking a piss, still chasing the high of that Chad who fucked you one time when you were 20. I mean, come on, do I even need to tell you how ridiculous it is to equate marriage to chopping your arm off, slicing your face off, getting a huge ass brand on your back?
What in the world? Where did all this come from? It feels like all the incel just poured out of him at once here. Synthetic Man is completely losing it if he hasn't already lost it before, and I'm losing it just listening to him. Like, I'm pretty sure this is what ranting for vengeance is gonna look like when he grows up. It's so unhinged and kind of in the best way possible. You can kind of only marvel at how delirious some of these people are when they just point at something they don't like and call it quote-unquote woke. And somehow they think that passes as real criticism instead of actually analyzing the piece of media that they're talking about. Well, hate to break it to you, Synth, but you aren't a critic at all. All you've really been doing here is just complaining about how you think this game is anti-natalism, anti-marriage propaganda, and probably a bunch of other buzzwords that you got off 4chan.
Can you imagine if somebody made a game about marriage today and it showed the horrors of the divorce court with women taking half of the man's money?
No, I'm pretty sure that's not what happens in a divorce there. The money is amicable. The wife in that situation isn't just gonna randomly walk away with half the man's money. That's just kind of an insane thing to come up with. Although, to be fair, Synth would have had to have been married and then divorced to actually know that, but we know he's never gonna touch a woman as long as he lives. Keep in mind, this is the same guy that was talking crap about the VTuber Kirsche, and then when she reached out to him, he instantly folded and then got made fun of by his chat for that. Yes, this was somehow a real thing.
But what happened?
Your chat just telling you that I'm fake this whole time.
I didn't check in the chat. I don't know what to tell you.
You don't read your chat. You just read the spam.
Do you see how fast it's going? It's fucking going fast as fuck.
Just as fast, and I have 2 of them. What are these excuses, you woman?
All right, well, you don't have to rail on me like this, okay?
I thought that's what you liked, Fuda Man.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I walked into that one. Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna be the next fucking meme now. Anyway,
All right, well now you know I'm real. I don't have to stay here. I'll let you get back to your shit.
All right, I mean, do you want to be a mod? I don't care, but it's easier to see you in chat.
Yeah, you can give me a wrench. For the flare, I guess.
All right. Well, just don't time out anybody because then everyone's gonna hate your ass. That's for sure.
I don't want to time out anyone.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
All right. See ya.
Honestly, I never expected Kirsche and Synthetic Man of all people to be crossing over, but here we are.
Having custody of the kids, showing how these single mothers subtly abuse and neglect their children. They end up being these soy boy Redditor cuckolds when they grow up. Obviously, everyone would call that right-wing propaganda, but this game comes out and some major reviewers are shilling the hell out of it, calling it some kind of deep, artistic masterpiece or some shit. I feel like anyone with a working brain and even a modicum of maturity, because I certainly consider myself pretty immature, all things considered.
Yet again, he seems to show a lot of pettiness for Skillup for being a better creator than he is and making a better review of Silent Hill F than he did. Like, maybe actually just work on being a good critic yourself instead of just complaining about woke stuff all the time. You'd probably be a lot happier too because of that, because not gonna lie, you seem pretty miserable in every video I've seen of yours. It's very obvious you don't actually like making this kind of content, you're only doing it because of the grift.
But even I thought this is just edgelord shit, the cringe kind.
Wow, and that's not you at all? Was that a Freudian slip there? Imagine Synthetic Man trying to call something else a cringe edgelord. Brother, I think you ought to take a look in the mirror someday. You and Ranting for Vengeance are pretty much the embodiments of cringe edgelords on this platform.
Where Hinako thinks marriage is so horrible, it's like brutally mutilating yourself and losing your entire identity. It frames this whole story as a melodramatic bout of hysteria from a drugged up woman, and she's actually rewarded by being able to somehow murder a bunch of people at her wedding.
What? No, how is that a reward? That's the bad ending of the game. That's the bad ending for a reason. How is her quote-unquote getting to kill people at her wedding the good ending? How is that a reward? I find it funny he keeps trying to act like he's an authority on Silent Hill and he's played the other games before, although again, I think throughout this entirety of this video, he's kind of shown he really hasn't. If anything, he's just proved over and over that he hasn't actually played any other Silent Hill games, or at the very least, doesn't actually understand what Silent Hill is about generally. Even though I did laugh quite a bit during this video because of how insane he is, it's kind of sad that he is like this to begin with. I can't imagine being so bitter and miserable against women, people of color, and LGBT people that you resort to something like this. If you do want some actually good reviews of Silent Hill F though, I do recommend Skillup's video, which obviously was mentioned here. I also recommend checking out Max Durat's video on Silent Hill F since he had a pretty good analysis of it as well. And personally, I would give this game my recommendation as well. I think it's a pretty worthy entry to the Silent Hill series, and it does take on a lot of the psychological horror elements that this series is known for just as well as the others. Even if Synthetic Man can't quite understand the themes of the game, I recommend checking out the game for yourself and coming to your own conclusion on it. Overall though, I genuinely hope Synthetic Man becomes a better critic, but I don't really see that happening soon. But what do you think? Do you agree with Synthetic Man's review? Am I totally wrong? And would you like to see more gaming related videos on the channel overall, since I tend to cover film and animation a lot? Let me know down in the comments below. Regardless, thank you so much for coming to the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a like and also consider subscribing as well. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably like the other videos I have planned as well, since I cover a lot of film, animation, and gaming topics on this channel overall. If there's a topic you think I should cover here on the channel in the future, be sure to comment it down below. You can also follow me on all my socials down below for consistent updates on what I'm doing in general. And you can also check out my letterbox for my written movie reviews as well. Thanks to all my YouTube members and patrons for pitching in with the extra monetary effort to keep me doing what I do here. Their names are all currently on the screen there. I appreciate you pitching in with the extra monetary effort to keep me doing what I do here, and I appreciate you for coming to the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. But for now, I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye!